Hello, Lo. Today is Sunday. The time is about, it's almost 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. I decided to do a video, and I just listened to your messages, your recordings. Thank you very much. And I was thinking about some of your questions, and again, I'm a very slow learner, so I have to listen to the ideas or what you communicate. I have to listen to them several times, but I'll get the hang of it because you have a way of thinking, a way of being. And one of the questions you asked me about what breaks my heart. To me, what is the heart? Well, the heart is a living organ, and how we need the heart. The heart, it pumps the blood and has a purpose. However, symbolically, the heart is what, love, and but however, that is symbolic. What breaks my heart, see, to me, breaking the heart is pain, and anything can set my pain off. And when I feel pain, it only means my desire is not met. I'll give you an example. Now, my partner Margaret, we've been together for 9 years. And she lives in this building. She lives on the 10th floor. And I cook for her, and I wash dishes, and we sleep together. And she's here for breakfast and lunch and dinner, and she stays overnight. And I do all the shopping, all the cooking, all the cleaning. Margaret was a graduate of NYU. She was an extremely gifted communicator, and very successful in her field of business, which was wine and spirits. She was able to, she lived in New York, near Manhattan. She started at a very young age, maybe about 19 or 20, in sales. And she worked with Jewish Orthodox Jews who had these, markets, liquor stores, and they're very successful. But she was able to get them to, she had them in a sense, in the palm of her hand. The way she communicates, and she's into statistics and mathematics, and they love that. So she was very successful. And however, today, she is going to be 77 in October 10th. And her cognitive ability is declining. And so our conversation is mostly about the past. I cannot give her talk about current events or politics or religion, anything that's beyond her memory. So she has a limited ability to communicate now. And she used to love to travel. She'd travel all over the world. And we used to go travel through California. And now she won't leave Santa Monica. Thank God I live near the beach. And so therefore my great love is to walk barefooted on the grass in the park, Palisades Park in Santa Monica. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I learned about love. I never learned from my parents about love. They were in a mode of survival, and they have 11 siblings or children. So consequently, their life was constantly trying to survive. So the idea of personal attention, the idea of guidance and love was absent. I never learned about love. My wife, I was only married once at the age of 27. We were together for about 12 years. And she was part of the group that I was involved in. She was involved for about 8 years. But one day, prior to going to the work, the work is the work of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. The work meaning to apply the work to oneself, not just theoretical See, you talk about the idea of the bones. It must be in the bones. Yes. And I see that in the bones, and also it must include emotion. And what is that emotion? Love and desire. So when you have knowledge with love and desire, that's wisdom. So I'm going to revert to something you said about wisdom, that this someone you admire talked about wisdom as being something to remember, where knowledge, there's idea of knowledge. I see what you said. Yeah, there's knowledge. What is wisdom? Well, knowledge is what you learn, and wisdom is what you remember. Well, I'll take a little even step further. Knowledge with wisdom is understanding, and understanding is possible to come when we have knowledge with an emotion. What is that emotion? Desire. I want it in my bones, and I love it. I love my effort to understand. That is it. So wisdom is understanding through reason and intuition. So now, I'll go back to what I was talking about being with Margaret. Now she has, her cognitive ability is declining. And being with Margaret, the reason I made a decision, I wanted a partner, because I wanted to be able to learn more about how I'm being. You don't know yourself. You notice yourself when you had a relationship. Your whole life is affected in a close relationship. Your nature comes out. What do I mean by your nature? Your expectations, your shoulds and shoulds come out. Your desires, what you want, come out. So Margaret has a different desire than I do. For instance, and the emotion I have, I'm constantly coming up with, experiencing emotions around Margaret. But also it's forcing me to come to clarity and overcome my pain, hate, and anger, and reach for the love that's in me. Now, the love that I'm talking about is not just to embrace, but to understand. The understanding is love to Spinoza. When I understand my nature, I've learned about my nature through all these years, over 50 years. And that's why journaling is so important to me. I learned from my teacher about journaling. It's not in Spinoza, but what is the nature of journaling? Journaling is when you write, as you know, you help your patients. But journaling is to write down the situation, the event that triggered your emotions. And the emotions are automatic. What do I mean by automatic? First emotion is desire. We want something. When we don't get what we want, we feel pain. Then from pain, we go automatically to hate, and from hate, we automatically go into anger. So desire, pain, hate, and anger. That is the basic emotions for all other emotions. When you have envy, when you have hate and hope and hate. Hope. Is it interesting about hope? What is the definition of hope? Hope is pleasure, an inconstant pleasure, with the idea of something in the future that could happen that would be pleasurable. Where fear is the opposite. Fear is an inconstant pain arising from the idea of something in the future that we are afraid that might happen. Something negative might happen. That's fear. Now, see, in Spinoza, it's the mind and the body. So I'm going to use the mind and the heart representing the body. They must be worked together. Many people try to understand Spinoza with only the mind. But you look at, this is not the mind. This is where the brain is. The mind is an intangible idea thing. Intangible. It's not a physical thing. So the situation I had with Margaret was, and again, there were many times, for instance, I'm going to send you a photo of I broke my hand because I was so upset with Margaret's son that I began to swear at him, and I put my fist in the door. That is rage. That's anger. Why? Because Margaret is taking several medications, and I find that I'm a natural. I use natural remedies. I don't take any medication. When I go to a doctor to get blood tests, they ask me, "What medications are you taking?" I tell them no, and they're surprised. I'm 84 years old, no medications, and I don't tend to. Now, Margaret believes in the doctors, meaning that she's always had good, close relationship with several doctors. She had personal family friends with who were doctors. So to her, doctors is an authority. However, doctors in the area of health do not know anything how the body works. When you have a symptom, they automatically know what to prescribe. They're not concerned with the side effects. In Margaret's case, one day, with all the pills she was taking, probably about 12 or 14 pills a day. Okay. And so why did she was taking those pills? She landed in the hospital, say 5 years ago, because of she was so afraid of her two sons in their 40s. And this was during the COVID. Margaret does not express her emotions. She keeps everything inside. I ask her, "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine." But she's under a lot of stress. She's worried about her sons. They might get COVID. They might die. So she actually fainted, passed out one night. And I had to call the paramedics. They took her to the hospital. And she was in there for a few days. Okay, she came back with boatloads of medication. Now, why am I bringing this up? This is an example. My desire is for Margaret to take natural remedies for anxiety. Now, there are certain things you can do for anxiety: yoga, meditation, rather than taking a pill. Also, she has high blood pressure, so they give her a pill for high blood pressure, and so they give her statins, or she has probably, they say, high cholesterol. They give her statins. I've learned that statins cause dementia. Now, you can see this is going to be a little long video. Sorry about that, but this is going to tell me my whole story, all the questions you ask. And so this is the belief system of the doctors who do not know a damn thing about natural remedies, about how the body works. The idea they have a remedy. They diagnose the symptoms and they prescribe. That's what they do: diagnose and prescribe. They're not concerned with the side effects. The idea of the side effects was, well, you either have the side effects or you're going to die. There's no other alternatives, which is insane. So they have no education in the area of natural remedies, natural medicine, herbs, and different foods. Food, example, can lower cholesterol, but the idea of cholesterol is this: they believe that cholesterol, the measure should be under 200, 190. Interesting thing is, the brain is all cholesterol. We need cholesterol for the body to operate. All cells are cholesterol. Without cholesterol, dementia comes in. When they introduced statins in the early 80s, there was an increase of dementia. This is documented. This is statistics. This is not hearsay. So I follow natural remedies. So now, with her son Eric, he lives in Paris. He visits maybe 4 times a year. Stays here for over a month. He was here, and we were talking about his mom, and we both agreed, that she has a problem. And I talked about the natural remedies that I want to prescribe and give her, and he, I thought, agreed with me. And however, he did not agree with me. And when I wanted to take Margaret off medication, and he did not want to. And I got so upset with him that I almost broke my hand. But there's more to it, and I'll talk about it later about that. There's a lot more to it. But what my desire was to protect Margaret. Why? Because I understand that I could help her, that I could reverse dementia. I really believe I don't believe I understand I can. By following, see, this is not my discovery. I've listened to several naturopathic doctors, people who are in the field of natural medicine, and they all agree about cholesterol. At one time, cholesterol was measured at 300. Now, why is it under 200 is the doctor's prescription? Why? Because of the pharmaceutical companies. They tell the doctors, you got to do this, you got to do that. The doctors today are under the thumb of the medical corporations and the insurance companies. So very few doctors, there's a high suicide of doctors, as you know, because it's a field that doesn't help. It's a field that is about money. It's a disaster. So my anger is what I was in touch with. After I broke my hand, when I express my emotions, I express my anger, I lose it, yes. Why was I so angry? Because my expectation was not met. And I believe the idea of free will. Free will is a great cause of our emotions. I believe that Eric has a free will to choose on the side of medicine or medical prescription drugs. I believe that he has free will to choose differently. He doesn't. Eric is a highly intelligent individual, high IQ, but the area of natural medicines he is totally ignorant of. You might have some idea about that. Anyway, so my anger is an expression of ignorance because I do not understand what is really going on. I only want something that I want, and this is something I'm going to really discover, is that when my desires are not met, I am in pain. I'm only concerned about my pain. I'm not concerned about anyone else. I want to get rid of my pain, and anger is a way to get rid of pain. So what I'm able to do, so I told Margaret, if you're going to take this medication, I want you to get the hell out of here. What I mean is, Margaret is with me for about 16 hours of the day. And she has another 8 hours on her own time up in her apartment. I wanted to shock her, to tell her, you got to go my way. She left, she stayed, and and it's an interesting thing, after I blew up, within 15 minutes, I can see the error of my ways. And I began to, in a sense, see that I was in error. I made a great mistake. So I began to see, also I went to the doctor at 3 o'clock in the morning. I went to the emergency at Kaiser emergency over near Westwood, just beyond Westwood. And I was there for 3 hours, and the doctor never showed up. I walked out. I put a splint on my hand, and for the next few days, my hand was just throbbing. I called the doctor. We had a video, and he said he looked at the videos, he looked at the x-rays, because they did give me an x-ray, but the doctor never showed up at that time. He said, you got to go in and get a cast because your hand is broken. All right. So I'm able to use my emotions for my growth. And this is something that Gurdjieff talks about. Our personality and our ego nature will get us into trouble. And it's in the trouble that we can grow from. My emotions, I grow from my emotions. And what experience do I have? When I overcome my emotions and I understand from my mind love comes in. I love my knowledge. And wisdom, you want to talk about what wisdom is? Wisdom is understanding. It's not memory. Memory is in the brain, storehouse of memory. It's recitable, repetition. But understanding is knowing. When you asked about what breaks my heart, what broke my heart was when I kicked Margaret out of my apartment and she stayed away for about 3 weeks. I cried, many days, cried, begging her to come back. Finally, when her son left, she came down. And even now, I feel an emotion. What is that emotion? I know that Margaret needs me to take care of her. She can't take care of herself. She doesn't shop. She doesn't pay her bills. She doesn't know how to calculate. She doesn't know how to prepare meals anymore. She knows how to open a can of tuna or a can of sardines, and that's what she will eat. Or buy some avocados. That's what she will eat. My friend, who's a psychic, I don't know if you believe in psychics, but I find they have I'm not a psychic. I have a high intuitive nature. But my friend, who is a psychic, told me that if it wasn't for me, Margaret, the love of my life, would be dead by now. She is surprised that she survived this long. And my desire is to continue serving, giving to Margaret. You talk about serving. To me, Spinoza's wisdom, his book, The Ethics, has had an impact on society. An impact even today. If you go on YouTube and look up Spinoza, you'll see hundreds of videos, and some of them are really well done. Many of them are animated, beautifully done. And they talk about Spinoza, talk about God, talk about, most of them about his opinion about God. But they have little understanding of how to apply Spinoza. They quote all his principles, his ideas, but that's not enough unless you go through a school to learn how to look at oneself. Again, you talk about service. Spinoza's ethics is all service. Serve individuals who are able to get his ideas and make them their own. See, one thing about you brought out is about you have a God speaks to you and Jesus is God. To me, Jesus was a man, as I mentioned, who came to wisdom. And he, as Spinoza said, he's communicated with God mind to mind. And I know this because I experienced this. Spinoza also, I learned from Spinoza. Now, I learned from Spinoza. I don't want to quote just Spinoza. I learned from Spinoza that I'm capable of directly communicating with the God's nature. But I ask you, what is God? You said God is love. No, that is one of the things that manifests from God is love. But what is he? Can you describe him? Do you know where he is? Now, Spinoza wrote his book. He's called The Theological Political Treatise. And I talked to you about this. In that book, and this was during the 17th century, he said, and with extensive study of the Bible, he said, there's nothing in the Bible that will give you an idea of what God is. There's nothing in the Bible that'll help you understand what human nature is. There's a lot of pain in the Bible, a lot of good stuff, no question. The Psalms, beautiful things. However, there's a lot of ideas. For instance, if you follow the Bible literally, in Afghanistan, their religious organizations, religious groups say this: if you steal, you cut off his hand. And they do that. They cut off the hand. That's taking something literally. And yet, I love to follow the New Testament. And I mentioned several things about the New Testament. The New Testament, what I mean is, when Jesus said, when he was asked, I guess he was, I don't know where he was, but I saw there was a movie called Jesus of Nazareth. I've watched it several times. I love it. The first part is all about Mary, but I don't like that. But the part I love is his communication of his parables. And in this video, there were men chasing a woman and ready to stone her. And she was against the wall, and they were ready to throw rocks at her. But one question was asked Jesus, what would you do? This woman committed adultery, and we're going to stone her because it's against the law. And Jesus asked, who without sin throw the first stone? Who without sin throw the first stone? They all walked away. Jesus did not use the history. There was no Bible then, but he didn't condemn her. He said, do not sin. He asked about what is sin. What is sin? Well, Moses wrote the Ten Commandments. I guess the Ten Commandments, if you violate the Ten Commandments, is sinful. But the idea is you really can't sin against God. What does that mean, to sin against God? Spinoza's idea of sin is anything that interferes with our mind to understand. Sinful is anything that, say, prevents us from understanding, because when we understanding, we have love. We have desire to clarify and to know and to improve and to come to knowledge of freedom. So when we are in emotion of anger, hate, and pain, or fear, envy, jealousy, when we are in emotion, it just says that we have a problem that we don't know how to deal with. And so the understanding, the power of journaling, is to acknowledge where we are, to identify the emotions, and to surrender to our emotions. And when we surrender, then it's possible to activate the mind, the higher intelligence, not the memory mind, not the ego mind, the higher mind that's directly connected with the mind of God. So you say God is love. That's a manifestation, a mode of God. Spinoza got, and what I understand, because I learned from Spinoza, because Spinoza has changed my life. Again, I experienced love. My love is to help. My love grows as I serve Margaret, and I serve my students with clarity and understanding. Many of my students have been to therapy. Very little progress. Why? Because I help bring out another part of their nature, their spiritual nature, the mind, the clarity of the mind. The clarity of the mind is the spirit of man. The mind is the spirit of man. Another parable that Jesus brought out is this. Our rabbi asked him, what do you mean that we have to be reborn again? Now this is a rabbi, Jewish rabbi. All this knowledge he has of the Torah. And Jesus said to him, you're taking this literally. He didn't say that exactly, but he said this. To be born again, well, first of all, I'm going to start with the rabbi asked. The rabbi asked, what do you mean we're going to be born again? Do you mean I have to go back to my mother's womb? And Jesus, that's ridiculous. That's he didn't say that, but the idea is to be born again is to come to the spirit of the law. The rabbis and everybody else, the Christians, follow the letter of the law. The spirit of the law is the understanding. The mind is the understanding, the spirit of understanding the spirit of the law. Now, interesting thing about laws. Here we are, 30 minutes. I hope you stick with me. But because I have so much more to give. The idea of the laws of nature, there are 4 laws. The law of self-preservation, the law of necessity, the law of cause and effect, the law of inertia, and I added one more, the law of following the path of least resistance. However, the 4 laws that manifest from God's nature, I would say, manifest in all of nature, humanity, and all living things. So it's necessary that Eric and the medical doctors do what they do with the knowledge they have. Everybody is in a state of self-preservation. What is self-preservation? Is to take care of ourselves, do the best we can to exist and to live. But that's not enough. Self-preservation with reason and intuition helps me come to wisdom and communicate with God mind to mind. Yes, Jesus was the voice of God, but just like I can be the voice of God, and I know that Spinoza was the voice of God. Spinoza said that Jesus communicated with God mind to mind. A great difference between what Moses communicated face to face. Face to face is not mind to mind. Face to face is an inferior state, a lower state. It's image. The great difference between images and clarity. It's like looking at a picture on a wall of Niagara Falls, or being in Niagara Falls, near it, and see the dynamic of that ocean, see the energy of it, the spray of the water, the life of it, where most people are satisfied with the image of it, a photo of it. All right, now, what else are you looking at? Yes, I'm looking at some of your notes, my notes, what I wrote down. Yes, you talk about the idea of being the Messiah. See, there's a great hope in Christianity that Jesus will return. People go to church, they pray, and have great hope that Jesus will return. And they have great hope that if they pray enough, that they'll be forgiven. Because after all, Jesus was on the cross and he forgave one's sins. But what is it that we sin continuously? The same sins over and over again. It's because we are ignorant. And I have all these emotions. They come up over and over again. But I'm able to free myself from being overwhelmed by them. It takes me 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour. But I don't live in those emotions like I used to. What else? So the Messiah is a belief. And what you talk about belief. And what's the difference from belief and understanding? Let me see. You talk about my prayer, and you pray also. My prayer, I'll express it again. I love it. Thank you, Father, for all that I am, for all that you've given me, and for all that I'm about to receive. I know that I'm a part of thee. Because of thee I am, and without thee I cannot be. My understanding is a part of your infinite and eternal understanding, and which you call the Son of God. As I come to clear and true ideas, I know that I am the adequate cause. And because you constitute the essence of my mind, You are the primary cause. My mind is a mode, a modification of your infinite attribute, thought. And my body is a mode, a manifestation of your infinite attribute, extension. My mind is the idea of my body. My body is the object of my mind. They're one in the same, expressing two distinct attributes. I see clearly. I see the essence and the nature of things. I live by reason and intuition. I know I'm coming to the knowledge of the union existing between my mind and the whole of nature, and the whole of your nature. And my desire is to share this knowledge with others, so they too can participate in your divinity. My desire is to serve thee and love thee with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my being, with all my mind. And desire thee and love thee before all things, and in doing so, I am truly blessed. I experience love, joy, happiness, blessedness, freedom, and I'll have an eternal life. That is my prayer. I pray that every day or several times a day. So there's a great difference between feelings and understanding. My teacher would have a meeting, in a group meeting, and he will ask a question, and I wanted to ask that question. I wanted to be special. I want to be better than the other students. I wanted recognition. I wanted love. I had an answer. And I brought up my idea, my thoughts, and my teacher would say, Louis, you're bringing out your feelings. I want you to develop those feelings into an idea. Over time, over many mistakes, and you repeat to me, bring those feelings into an idea. Eventually, an idea came to me. And that idea was clear. He was bringing out an idea. He was talking about one of the other students. And he asked a question. And I was able to bring out the idea of that question. Answer that question. Not just to answer it, but because I understood. At that time, my teacher said, Louis, did anybody understand what Louis said? Nobody brought out anything, said anything. Louis saw the truth. Louis has a tremendous depth of intuition. I didn't know what that was. And that was the first time in all my life, at that time I was about 32 years old, I've never had anybody compliment me. So an idea in the mind can be clear or confused. A confused idea is the belief in free will. A clear idea is that man is governed by laws, the law of self-preservation and the law of necessity. Well, I hope I've asked you or answered some of your questions. And the idea of the work that I do is to improve my understanding, to live how Spinoza lived, to have a grasp of the idea of God and to live with God and communicate with God directly. That is love. Yes, you have love. Low. And this is wonderful. What you have is love. But I think you need to come to understand the cause of that love. Thank you for listening.